In a glittering galaxy filled with sleek alien ships, the notorious Zarnak Coalition gathered around a massive holographic display that projected images of the human fleet. Their laughter echoed through the command chamber, a sharp contrast to the tense atmosphere of the cosmos outside. Captain Ilara stood at the forefront, her arms crossed over her chest, as she listened to the taunts of the alien leaders. "Look at those hulking monstrosities," one Zarnak general sneered, gesturing dismissively at the images of the U.S. Valor and its sister ships. "They are relics of a bygone era, unfit for the modern battlefield." Ilara felt the heat of anger rise within her, but she remained composed. Her crew of hardened veterans watched from the periphery, their expressions a mixture of frustration and determination. She knew that words were merely shadows of the real fight to come. They would show the Zarnak what humanity was capable of, and she would not allow their mockery to undermine her resolve. As the meeting progressed, the Zarnak leaders debated their next move, aiming to seize control of a resource-rich planet in the neighboring system. Ilara listened intently, knowing this was not just a diplomatic mission, but a chance to protect humanity's interests. They had to act swiftly before the Zarnak could unleash their assault. Back on the Valor, Ilara gathered her crew in the war room. The mood was somber but charged with energy. Every eye was focused on her, waiting for a plan of action. She addressed them with the fervor of a leader determined to uplift her team. "They think our ships are slow and bulky," Ilara began, "but what they don't see is the strength we possess in numbers. We may not be the sleekest vessels out here, but we are resilient, and our firepower is unmatched." Her words ignited a spark in the crew. They nodded in agreement, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They were not just fighting for resources, but for their dignity as a species, for the right to stand tall in a universe that sought to belittle them. As they plotted their course to the resource-rich planet, Ilara felt a sense of unity among her crew. The hum of engines and the glow of the control panels filled the air with an electric atmosphere. They were ready to confront the Zarnak and show them the true heart of humanity. The Valor soared through the stars, its bulky silhouette stark against the void. The crew worked seamlessly as they approached the target destination. Ilara monitored the scanners, feeling the anticipation build within her. This was their moment to turn the tide, to prove that humanity was not to be underestimated. As they entered the planet's orbit, Ilara's heart raced. She could see the Zarnak ships already descending upon the surface. Their sleek forms glided effortlessly as they prepared to engage in their invasion. The Zarnak were relentless, driven by greed and arrogance, but they had underestimated the human spirit. Ilara activated the fleet-wide communication system. "This is it, people," she said, her voice steady and clear. "We face an enemy that believes we are weak, but today we show them our strength. We will defend our home and fight for our people." The crew erupted in cheers, the sound echoing through the ship as each member felt a renewed sense of purpose. Ilara smiled, knowing that together they would rise to the challenge. Together, they would demonstrate that the heart of humanity could conquer even the greatest odds. They were ready to respond, and they would not back down. As the Valor hovered in orbit around the resource-rich planet, Ilara studied the tactical display that illuminated the war room. The Zarnak fleet was larger and more agile, but she had a plan that relied on their bulk and firepower. She knew that the key to victory lay not just in their ships, but in their ability to work together as a cohesive unit. Her mind raced as she plotted their strategy. Gathering her senior officers, she laid out her vision for the impending battle. "Listen up, everyone," she began. "We may not have the sleekest ships, but we have something they don't. We have resilience, and we have the element of surprise." Lieutenant Kira, a sharp-eyed strategist, chimed in. "Captain, if we can use our ships to create a blockade, we can funnel their smaller vessels into a narrow approach. We can capitalize on that and strike hard." Ilara nodded. "That's exactly what I was thinking. We can position the Valor at the entrance to the planet's atmosphere, using its bulk to force the Zarnak into a tighter formation. Then we'll hit them with everything we've got." The officers exchanged glances, the tension palpable, but a spark of excitement ignited among them. They could see the potential in her plan, and the prospect of proving their worth fueled their determination. As the Valor descended towards the planet's surface, Ilara felt the weight of her responsibility. The Zarnak believed they were superior, and their confidence would make them reckless. She just needed to leverage that arrogance to their advantage. On board the Valor, the crew busied themselves preparing for battle. The sound of clanking metal and shuffling feet filled the corridors. As they readied their weapons and systems, each member of the crew understood the stakes involved. It was more than just a battle for resources. It was a fight for their dignity and existence. As they broke through the atmosphere, Ilara watched the chaotic scene unfold below. The Zarnak were already landing their forces, deploying troops and machinery to extract the planet's riches. The ground was a swirl of energy and movement, and Ilara's heart raced at the sight of it. Now, she thought, was the time to strike. Captain, to all units, she commanded, prepare for Formation Alpha. We will engage the enemy as soon as we reach optimal position. The crew responded with a chorus of affirmations, their voices blending into a unified resolve. The ship's engines roared. As they maneuvered into position, Ilara could feel the tension building in her chest. She took a deep breath and focused on the task ahead. As the Valor settled into its blockade position, the Zarnak ships continued their descent, unaware of the trap being laid for them. Ilara watched as the first wave of Zarnak fighters approached her position with reckless abandon. Now, she thought, now. With a swift motion, she activated the ship-wide communication system. This is our moment, she announced. We are not the underdogs. We are humanity, and we will fight back. The crew erupted in cheers, fueling her confidence. As the first Zarnak ships entered the choke point, Ilara ordered her weapon systems to fire. The Valor unleashed a barrage of missiles and energy blasts, illuminating the darkened sky. The element of surprise worked to their advantage as Zarnak ships began to fall. The once mocking laughter from the alien coalition turned into frantic shouts of panic. The human fleet had responded with ferocity and determination, proving that the bulky ships held a strength all their own. Ilara's heart raced as she watched the chaos unfold below. The crew worked in perfect harmony, each member executing their role with precision. The tide of battle was shifting, and she could feel it in her bones. As the Zarnak forces scrambled to regain control, Ilara knew they had ignited something fierce within themselves, and it was only the beginning of what humanity could achieve when pushed to the brink. As the battle raged on, Ilara felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. The Zarnak fleet was reeling from their unexpected assault, and her crew was seizing the opportunity to capitalize on the chaos around her. The bridge was alive with activity. Alarms blared and lights flickered as systems engaged in a symphony of war. Captain, they're trying to regroup, Kira reported, her eyes glued to the tactical display. The Zarnak are forming up for a counterattack. They're not done yet. Ilara nodded, her expression resolute. We need to disrupt their formation before they can launch their assault. They can't regroup if we keep the pressure on. A plan began to take shape in her mind. She understood the Zarnak were predictable in their arrogance. They would underestimate the human resolve. She addressed her crew with a fierce determination. Listen up, everyone, she said. We're going to split our forces and create multiple points of attack. We'll make them fight on our terms. The crew responded with renewed energy, their voices a chorus of agreement. Ilara could feel their spirit rise as they prepared to execute the new plan. Ilara split the fleet into two groups. One would continue the blockade while the other would veer off to flank the Zarnak ships from behind. The idea was to create confusion and make it difficult for the aliens to mount an effective counterstrike. As they maneuvered into position, Ilara watched the Zarnak ships scramble to adjust. Their sleek forms darted through space, but their movements were frantic, betraying their rising panic. The humans were proving to be a far more formidable opponent than they had anticipated. The Valor surged forward, engaging the nearest Zarnak ship. The crew worked in perfect synchronization, targeting the enemy's weak points and exploiting openings. The sense of unity among them was palpable, each member knowing they were part of something greater than themselves. Amid the fray, Ilara's eyes caught sight of a familiar shape weaving through the chaos. It was Lieutenant Jackson, his fighter, a nimble craft that could dart and weave among the larger ships. With a deftness that took her breath away, he swooped in to deliver precise strikes against the Zarnok flankers. "Jax, you're a madman," Ilara called over the comms, "but keep your head down, they're targeting you." "I know what I'm doing," he replied with a grin, his voice filled with confidence as he danced through enemy fire. "This is where the fun begins." His boldness ignited a fire in Ilara's chest. She realized that this was the spirit of humanity on display, fearless, audacious, and unwavering. Even in the face of ridicule, they were standing tall. As the Zarnok ships began to fall one by one, Ilara felt the tide truly shifting. Their confidence was waning as chaos engulfed their ranks. The Zarnok commanders shouted orders, but their words fell on deaf ears as confusion spread among their forces. Ilara seized the moment and pushed forward. She ordered the Valor to join Jax in the fray. They were a force to be reckoned with, and she could feel the exhilaration coursing through her. The crew was alive with purpose, each blast of energy and missile fire a testament to their resolve. In the midst of battle, the Zarnok leaders began to realize the depth of their mistake. They had underestimated humanity's ability to fight back, and the bulkiness of the human fleet was turning out to be a hidden advantage in this fierce contest. With renewed ferocity, Ilara led her fleet deeper into the fray. Her voice rang out over the comms. "We are humanity. We will not be silenced. We will not be defeated. Let's show them what we can do." The crew roared in response, their cheers echoing through the ship as they rallied together, united in their mission. They were not just defending their home, they were proving that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they could rise up and respond with the full force of their indomitable spirit. And in that moment of chaos and fire, Ilara knew they were just beginning to show the universe what it truly meant to be human. As the battle raged on, Ilara felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. The Zarnok fleet was reeling from their unexpected assault, and her crew was seizing the opportunity to capitalize on the chaos around her. The bridge was alive with activity. Alarms blared and lights flickered as systems engaged in a symphony of war. "Captain, they're trying to regroup," Kira reported, her eyes glued to the tactical display. "The Zarnok are forming up for a counterattack. They're not done yet." Ilara nodded, her expression resolute. "We need to disrupt their formation before they can launch their assault. They can't regroup if we keep the pressure on." A plan began to take shape in her mind. She understood the Zarnok were predictable in their arrogance. They would underestimate the human resolve. She addressed her crew with a fierce determination. "Listen up, everyone," she said. "We're going to split our forces and create multiple points of attack. We'll make them fight on our terms." The crew responded with renewed energy, their voices a chorus of agreement. Ilara could feel their spirit rise as they prepared to execute the new plan. Ilara split the fleet into two groups. One would continue the blockade while the other would veer off to flank the Zarnok ships from behind. The idea was to create confusion and make it difficult for the aliens to mount an effective counterstrike. As they maneuvered into position, Ilara watched the Zarnok ships scramble to adjust. Their sleek forms darted through space, but their movements were frantic, betraying their rising panic. The humans were proving to be a far more formidable opponent than they had anticipated. The Valor surged forward, engaging the nearest Zarnok ship. The crew worked in perfect synchronization, targeting the enemy's weak points and exploiting openings. The sense of unity among them was palpable, each member knowing they were part of something greater than themselves. Amid the fray, Ilara's eyes caught sight of a familiar shape weaving through the chaos. It was Lieutenant Jackson, his fighter, a nimble craft that could dart and weave among the larger ships. With a deftness that took her breath away, he swooped in to deliver precise strikes against the Zarnok flankers. "Jax, you're a madman," Ilara called over the comms, "but keep your head down, they're targeting you." "I know what I'm doing," he replied with a grin, his voice filled with confidence as he danced through enemy fire. "This is where the fun begins." His boldness ignited a fire in Ilara's chest. She realized that this was the spirit of humanity on display, fearless, audacious, and unwavering. Even in the face of ridicule, they were standing tall. As the Zarnak ships began to fall one by one, Ilara felt the tide truly shifting. Their confidence was waning as chaos engulfed their ranks. The Zarnak commanders shouted orders, but their words fell on deaf ears as confusion spread among their forces. Ilara seized the moment and pushed forward. She ordered the Valor to join Jax in the fray. They were a force to be reckoned with, and she could feel the exhilaration coursing through her. The crew was alive with purpose, each blast of energy and missile fire a testament to their resolve. In the midst of battle, the Zarnak leaders began to realize the depth of their mistake. They had underestimated humanity's ability to fight back, and the bulkiness of the human fleet was turning out to be a hidden advantage in this fierce contest. With renewed ferocity, Ilara led her fleet deeper into the fray. Her voice rang out over the comms. "We are humanity. We will not be silenced. We will not be defeated. Let's show them what we can do." The crew roared in response, their cheers echoing through the ship as they rallied together, united in their mission. They were not just defending their home, they were proving that even in the face of overwhelming odds, they could rise up and respond with the full force of their indomitable spirit. And in that moment of chaos and fire, Ilara knew they were just beginning to show the universe what it truly meant to be human. As the doors of the command center burst open, Ilara led her team into the heart of the Zarnak vessel. The room was filled with alien technology, blinking ominously under dim lights. The Zarnak leaders stood at the far end, their faces a mixture of anger and fear as they realized the humans had breached their defenses. Ilara's eyes locked onto the Zarnak commander, a towering figure adorned in ornate armor that glinted menacingly in the low light. The commander sneered as he brandished a weapon that pulsed with energy. "You think you can just waltz in here and claim victory?" He spat, his voice dripping with disdain. Ilara stepped forward, unflinching. "We're not here to claim victory. We're here to end this." She gestured to her crew positioned around the room, their weapons aimed squarely at the Zarnak leaders. "Your arrogance has cost you dearly, and now you will face the consequences." The tension in the room thickened as the Zarnak soldiers shifted nervously, their hands twitching near their weapons. Ilara knew this was a pivotal moment. She could sense the fear rippling through the ranks of the Zarnak as they realized their once invincible facade was crumbling. "You think you can intimidate us?" the commander retorted, but his voice lacked conviction. "We are the Zarnak. We will never surrender." Ilara felt a fire ignite within her. This isn't about surrender, this is about survival. She raised her weapon, a symbol of defiance and unity for her crew. "The universe is changing, and we won't let you dictate our fate any longer." Without warning, the Zarnak commander gestured to his soldiers to attack. Ilara's instincts kicked in, and she shouted, "Take cover," as blaster fire erupted in the command center. The room erupted into chaos as both sides engaged in a fierce firefight. Ilara ducked behind a console, narrowly avoiding a blast that singed the wall beside her. She could hear her crew responding with determination. Each member of her team had trained for this moment, and they fought with a ferocity that fueled her resolve. Kira fired back at the nearest Zarnak soldier, her shots precise and calculated. With each alien that fell, the tide shifted further in their favor. The humans were no longer the underdogs, but warriors determined to reclaim their dignity. Jax charged forward, darting between the chaos to flank the Zarnak soldiers. His movements were fluid and agile. As he dispatched enemies with swift efficiency, Ilara felt pride swell within her as she watched him embody the spirit of humanity's resilience. Amid the chaos, Ilara spotted the command console. It was the key to shutting down the Zarnak's remaining defenses and asserting control over the ship. If they could reach it, they could turn the tide of battle once and for all. "We need to get to that console," she shouted to her team. "Cover me, I'm going in." With her heart racing, Ilara dashed toward the console, dodging blaster fire. As she moved, her crew provided cover fire, their shots ringing out in a symphony of resistance. As she reached the console, her fingers flew across the controls, desperate to access the systems. She could see the panic in the Zarnak ranks as their defenses began to falter. The command center was filled with shouts of confusion and alarm. Ilara's mind raced as she activated the console and started to override the Zarnak systems. The lights flickered and alarms blared around her. The Zarnak commander shouted orders, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of her crew pushing forward. Their determination was palpable, and Ilara felt the weight of their shared resolve. As the console beeped to life, she smiled. The Zarnak had underestimated humanity's spirit, and now they were witnessing the consequences of their arrogance. The tide was turning and victory was within reach. With a final command, Ilara initiated the shutdown of the Zarnak defenses. The command center shuddered as systems powered down, and the once unassailable command ship became vulnerable. The Zarnak soldiers realized too late that their reign of intimidation was crumbling. Captain Kira called out, "We've done it, they're losing power." The Zarnak commander's face twisted in disbelief. As he watched his command center descend into chaos, Ilara turned to her crew, a fierce pride burning in her eyes. "We are humanity, and we will not back down now. Let's finish this once and for all." As the command center descended into chaos, Ilara felt a surge of adrenaline fueling her determination. The Zarnak commander's arrogance had blinded him to the strength of her crew, and now they were on the brink of victory. She turned to her team, their faces lit with resolve amid the flickering lights and alarms. "We need to secure the perimeter," she commanded as the Zarnak soldiers scrambled in confusion. "Their defenses are down, but they won't go quietly." Kira nodded and moved quickly to rally the crew. "We'll push them back and ensure they can't regroup." With renewed energy, the team fanned out through the command center. Ilara took the lead, moving toward the exit where the sounds of battle echoed in the corridors. She could hear the distant blasts and shouts of her crew fighting against the remaining Zarnak soldiers. As they stepped into the corridor, the scene unfolded before them. Zarnak forces were in disarray, their once imposing ranks shattered by the unrelenting spirit of humanity. The alien soldiers were scrambling to regroup, but her crew was everywhere, striking with precision and confidence. Ilara's heart raced as they pushed forward. Each step felt like a declaration of their strength. Each fallen Zarnak soldier was a testament to their defiance against ridicule and underestimation. "We need to find their command hub," Kira shouted over the din. "If we can disable their communication systems, we can cut off any chance of escape." Ilara nodded, knowing their command structure was in shambles. They could dismantle any hope the Zarnak had for recovery. With that goal in mind, they pressed deeper into the heart of the ship, fighting their way through pockets of resistance. Every encounter brought new challenges, but Ilara's crew fought like warriors driven by purpose. Each blast of energy and echo of gunfire served as a reminder of what was at stake. They were fighting not just for their survival, but to reclaim their dignity and establish humanity's place in the galaxy. Finally, they reached the command hub, a vast chamber filled with pulsating lights and screens displaying chaotic feeds from across the ship. The Zarnak were frantically trying to reestablish control, but Ilara could see their efforts faltering. "Captain, we need to shut this down," Kira said, pointing to a central console. "If we take that out, we can disrupt their communication entirely." Ilara nodded and motioned for her team to take cover. They needed to create a diversion to reach the console. With a swift command, they initiated a coordinated attack. The sound of blaster fire filled the air as they moved in a flanking maneuver. In the midst of the chaos, Ilara spotted the Zarnak commander again. He was shouting orders, desperately trying to rally his troops, but the fear in his eyes told a different story. Ilara felt a rush of satisfaction. It was a moment of poetic justice, watching the once mighty commander crumble under the weight of his own arrogance. As the crew pressed forward, Ilara shouted for everyone to focus on the console. The Zarnak soldiers fought fiercely, but her team was relentless. They pushed through the resistance like a wave crashing against a crumbling shore. Finally reaching the console, Ilara began the process of disabling their communication systems. She could feel the tension in the air as her fingers raced across the controls. The Zarnak were becoming increasingly desperate, and Ilara knew they had to act quickly. Just as she initiated the shutdown, an explosion rocked the chamber. The lights flickered and alarms blared as debris fell from the ceiling. Ilara ducked instinctively and felt a surge of fear for her crew. "Kira, where are you?" Ilara shouted as she regained her footing. Over here, came Kira's voice from the shadows. "We're holding them back, but they're closing in." Ilara could see the Zarnak regrouping, desperate to defend their command hub. She steeled herself, ready to fight for her crew and their future with a fierce determination. She activated the shutdown sequence. The screens around her flickered as communication feeds cut off across the ship. The Zarnak soldiers' faces twisted in disbelief as they realized they were isolated. Their command structure was collapsing, and their once formidable presence was rapidly unraveling. "It's done," Ilara announced. "We've cut off their communication and crippled their leadership. Now let's finish this." With a renewed sense of purpose, the crew charged forward, pushing the Zarnak back in a final push toward victory. They were no longer the underdogs. They were warriors, proving that humanity's spirit could conquer even the greatest of challenges. As they fought with unyielding resolve, Ilara knew this was just the beginning of their journey together. They would show the galaxy that they were a force to be reckoned with, and they would not be silenced or ridiculed ever again. As the last echoes of the alarm subsided, Ilara felt a surge of adrenaline fueling her resolve. The Zarnak soldiers were now cornered and desperate, their confidence shattered, and their command structure in ruins. Ilara's crew moved with purpose, pushing forward to seal their victory. Captain Kira reported breathlessly, "We've got them on the run. They're retreating toward the hangar. We can cut them off." "Let's move," Ilara commanded. Her heart raced with anticipation. They had come too far to let the Zarnak escape. Now they had to end this fight decisively. The corridors of the Zarnak command ship were filled with chaos as they navigated toward the hangar. Their footsteps echoed in the dimly lit passages, and the tension was palpable. Each crew member understood the stakes. The pride of humanity rested on their shoulders. As they approached the hangar bay, Ilara noticed the flickering lights overhead, indicating a power struggle within the ship. The Zarnak were scrambling to defend their last line of retreat. She could almost hear their panicked voices as they communicated through their shattered network. "They're preparing to launch fighters," Kira warned, scanning the tactical display. "We need to secure that hangar before they get airborne." Ilara nodded. "We'll split into two teams, one to breach the hangar and the other to cover the flanks. We can't let them regroup or escape." The crew quickly divided into their respective teams and moved with practiced efficiency. Ilara led the charge toward the hangar entrance, adrenaline pumping through her veins. As they neared the door, she raised her weapon, signaling for silence. With a swift motion, Ilara activated the door controls. The heavy metal doors slid open to reveal the hangar bustling with Zarnak soldiers frantically prepping their ships for launch. "Fire at will," Ilara shouted as her crew surged forward, weapons blazing. The Zarnak were caught off guard as the humans stormed into the hangar. The air crackled with energy, and the sounds of blaster fire rang out in a deafening chorus. Ilara pushed forward, leading her crew into the heart of the hangar. She could see Zarnak fighters already lifting off, but they were disorganized and clumsy. Their confidence had vanished, replaced by a palpable fear. Jax moved with lightning speed, darting between enemy soldiers and dispatching them with skill. The sight of him in action fueled Ilara's spirit as she watched her crew excel in the chaos. The Zarnak were no match for their determination. As the battle raged on, Ilara spotted a group of Zarnak soldiers attempting to regroup near a set of fighters. She made a split-second decision and shouted, "We need to take them out now before they can launch." With a fierce shout, she led her team toward the regrouping Zarnak. The air was thick with tension and the sounds of battle. As they pushed through the chaos, Ilara felt the heat of the moment surge through her. A fire ignited within her heart as they charged toward the enemy. The Zarnak soldiers turned in alarm, their faces registering shock and fear. As the humans bore down on them, Ilara felt a rush of exhilaration. This was their moment. This was their chance to show the galaxy what humanity could achieve. As they engaged the enemy, Ilara fought with everything she had. Each movement was driven by the collective spirit of her crew. Their determination resonated through the hangar as they pushed the Zarnak further back. Kira shouted from the flank, "They're losing ground, Captain. We can take them." Ilara's heart soared at the sight of her crew pushing through the chaos. They were a force united by purpose, and their spirit shone brighter than any Zarnak arrogance. Their unity was their greatest weapon. With one final push, Ilara led her team toward the last remnants of the Zarnak forces. They fought fiercely, but the humans were relentless. The tide had turned decisively in their favor, and there was no going back. As the last Zarnok soldier fell, silence enveloped the hangar. The only sounds were the heavy breathing of her crew and the distant echoes of battle fading away. Ilara stood amid the remnants of the fight, her heart racing with exhilaration and disbelief. "We did it," she breathed, looking around at her crew. "We showed them what humanity is capable of." Cheers erupted throughout the hangar as her crew celebrated their hard-fought victory. They had proven their worth, and in that moment Ilara felt a profound sense of pride. They had not only defended their home, but also forged a new identity in the galaxy, one that could not be overlooked or ridiculed. But as the cheers echoed around her, Ilara knew their journey was far from over. This was just the beginning of humanity's rise. They had responded to the ridicule with strength and resilience, and she was determined to ensure that their legacy would resonate throughout the stars. In the aftermath of the battle, the hangar buzzed with a mix of celebration and urgency. Ilara took a moment to breathe in the atmosphere around her. The crew had proven themselves as warriors and allies in a fight that would echo across the galaxy. They had shown the Zarnok that humanity was not to be trifled with. As the initial jubilation settled into focused determination, Ilara gathered her team. "The mission was not yet complete. We need to secure the ship and assess the damage," she said, her voice steady and authoritative. "The Zarnok might still have contingencies in place." Kira nodded. "You're right, Captain. We should sweep the ship and ensure there are no remaining Zarnok forces lurking around." With that, Ilara led her crew out of the hangar and back into the labyrinth of the Zarnok command ship. They moved through the corridors with caution, every sense heightened. The atmosphere was tense, but the spirit of victory propelled them forward. As they swept through each deck, they encountered remnants of the battle. Zarnok bodies lay strewn across the floors, and signs of destruction marked their passage. The ship was a shell of its former self, and Ilara could feel the weight of what they had accomplished. They reached the communications hub, a once imposing room now flickering and in disarray. Ilara stepped inside and surveyed the scene. The screens that had once broadcast Zarnok commands now displayed static and debris. She felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing they had dismantled the enemy's power from within. Kira approached a console and began to analyze the remaining systems. "We can download critical data from here, Captain. It might provide insights into their strategies and plans." "Do it," Ilara urged. "We need to understand who we're dealing with in the future." As Kira worked, Ilara looked around the room, reflecting on their fight. The Zarnok had underestimated them, but now they were the ones left in disarray. It was a powerful reminder of the strength that lay within unity and determination. After a tense few moments, Kira straightened up. "We've got valuable intel here, Captain. It details their operations and locations throughout the sector. This could be crucial for our future engagements." "Excellent," Ilara replied. "We'll take this back to the Valor and use it to prepare for any potential Zarnok resurgence." With the data secured, the crew continued their sweep of the ship. They moved quickly but cautiously, knowing that the Zarnok might still have hidden defenses or surprise attacks waiting to happen. As they approached the ship's bridge, Ilara felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. She knew this was the heart of the Zarnok command structure, and securing it would mark the final step in their mission. With a deep breath, she pushed open the doors to the bridge. The room was eerily quiet, and the displays were dimmed, but Ilara could sense the remnants of the chaos that had unfolded. The Zarnok leaders were gone, but their ship still bore the scars of the fierce battle. "We did it," she announced to her crew as they entered. "The Zarnok have been defeated, and we've secured their ship. It's a historic moment for humanity." Cheers erupted once again, but this time there was a sense of purpose behind it. They had not only fought for their survival, but had claimed a significant victory for all humankind. As the celebration died down, Ilara gathered her crew together. "I want to thank each and every one of you for your bravery and resilience. We have proven that humanity is a force to be reckoned with, and that we can stand united in the face of adversity." But she continued, looking each crew member in the eye. "This is only the beginning. We must learn from this victory and prepare for what lies ahead. The Zarnok will not forget this day, and neither should we." Kira stepped forward. "We have the data we need to strategize and defend our home. This will ensure that we're ready for any future threats." Ilara smiled, knowing their journey was just beginning. She felt a renewed sense of hope and determination. The crew had transformed from a mockable fleet into a formidable force ready to carve out their place in the galaxy. As they left the bridge and headed back to the Valor, Ilara couldn't help but think of the future. They would face challenges and obstacles, but they would face them together, united as one. And as the crew prepared for their next steps, she knew that humanity would no longer be ridiculed. They would be seen as equals, ready to respond to any threat with the strength of their spirit and the unity of their resolve.